My husband told me to smile more at my mom's funeral. Everything around me felt like it was moving in slow motion. The voices of people murmuring, the tears slipping down my face. I couldn't even bring myself to look at anyone. I could barely breathe through the lump in my throat. But then, as if he had no idea how much pain I was in, my husband leaned over, right there in the middle of everything, and told me to smile more. He said it so casually, like it was just a piece of advice, like he thought it was going to make things better. The words cut through me, sharper than I ever could have expected. How could he say that? How could he ask me to smile at a time like this? The shock of it hit me harder than I could have imagined. I couldn't even process it at first. I froze. My heart started pounding in my chest, my body tensing up like I was about to explode. I wanted to scream, to shout, to demand why on earth he would say something like that. I was furious, but more than that, I was completely confused. Did he not understand what I was going through? Was he blind to the weight of the moment? How could he possibly not see that I was breaking inside? His words felt like a slap, like a blow that didn't make any sense, and I couldn't fathom why he'd think it was okay to say something like that, especially now. My body felt like it was on fire, every inch of me burning with the fury and hurt that had suddenly come flooding through. I wanted to say something, but I couldn't find the words. Couldn't make sense of the mess in my head. That moment stayed with me. Long after I had walked away from the grave, long after the funeral had ended, I couldn't stop replaying his words in my mind. Smile more. That wasn't something you say to someone in pain. Not in the middle of something like this. It didn't make sense. But more than that, I started to question everything. Was he always like this? Was I blind to it? Had I been making excuses for his behavior for so long that I couldn't see what was right in front of me? This wasn't the first time something felt off, but it was the first time it hit me so deeply. I had always been the one to hold it together, the one who took care of things, but now I felt like I was unraveling. His words felt like the moment everything started to come apart. I didn't know what to believe anymore. It felt like the truth was staring me in the face, but I didn't want to see it. I didn't know what to do with myself. Part of me wanted to walk up to him right then and there, to demand an explanation, to confront him and tell him how hurt I was. But another part of me hesitated. Was it a misunderstanding? Maybe he didn't mean it the way it sounded. But then, when I thought about everything that had been building up, his lack of support, the way he'd withdrawn from me over time, it made me wonder if this was just the final straw. Maybe it was all adding up to something I didn't want to see. I felt torn, like I was stuck between my own anger and the confusion of trying to figure out what was really going on. I didn't know how to confront him, or even if I should. Maybe this was just a glimpse into something I didn't want to face. Either way, I was lost. I had always thought our relationship was solid. We'd been through so much together. We had our issues, sure, but we always worked through them. Or at least, I thought we did. I thought we understood each other in a way that no one else could. But that moment, at the funeral, when he told me to smile more, something inside me snapped. It was like a veil was lifted, and suddenly, I saw everything clearly, everything I had been avoiding. This wasn't the first time he'd dismissed my feelings. It wasn't the first time I'd felt like he wasn't really there for me when I needed him. It was just the first time it hit me with such force. It was the first time it felt like he was completely disregarding everything that mattered to me. I had brushed off his distance before, his lack of empathy, telling myself that he was stressed or tired or whatever excuse I could come up with. But now, in the midst of my grief, it felt like a betrayal I couldn't ignore anymore. It felt like he wasn't just failing to support me, he was actively making things worse. I felt completely alone, like the one person I thought would always have my back was the one making it harder to breathe. I didn't know what to do with the rush of emotions that hit me right after he said that. I wanted to yell, to break down, to do anything but stand there frozen. I wanted to scream at him, to demand he understand how much I was hurting. I wanted him to see me, really see me, but I didn't. I stood there, holding it all in, and I could feel my heart sinking. The tears I had been holding back all day threatened to spill over, but I refused to let them fall in front of him. I didn't want to give him that satisfaction, I guess. But it hurt. It hurt in a way I couldn't explain. It felt like a betrayal. A sharp, cutting pain that I didn't expect from the person I trusted most. His words were nothing compared to the silence that followed, the gap that opened between us in that instant. I could feel it. A distance growing in the space between us. I thought maybe it was just a misunderstanding, but the more I thought about it, the more it felt like the beginning of something I wasn't ready to face. I wanted to ask him why, to get the answers I needed, but all I could do was stand there and wonder what had gone so wrong. We started off like any other couple. At least that's how I remember it. It was fast, intense, and everything I ever wanted. He was my rock, the person I could always count on. He made me feel like I could conquer anything, and I believed in him more than I ever believed in myself. We built our life together, our future, our dreams. I thought we were solid. I thought we understood each other completely. I trusted him completely. Every argument, every challenge we faced, I believed we were stronger for it. But as time passed, I started to notice things changing. Slowly at first, little comments, small gestures of indifference. I tried to ignore them. I tried to tell myself that he was just stressed, that we were just going through a phase. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. And now, standing at my mother's funeral, I realized I had been ignoring it for too long. I loved him with everything I had, and I thought he loved me too. We had this connection that I couldn't explain, this bond that felt unbreakable. I remember the way we used to talk for hours, the way he always knew how to make me feel better. When I was down, we shared so many moments, so much laughter, so many dreams for the future. I thought he was the one person who would never let me down, the one person who would always understand me. I thought we were partners in everything: life, love, the messiness of the world around us. We had something special, or at least, I thought we did. Over time, I started to see things differently. The first time I brushed it off, I told myself it was just a rough patch. The second time, I ignored it, convincing myself that he was just having a bad day. But there were moments that couldn't be ignored: the way he'd shut me out when I needed him most, the way he started making decisions without even asking for my input, the little things, the way he seemed less interested in what I had to say, less attentive to my needs. I felt myself pulling away from him, but I didn't want to admit that things were changing. I didn't want to face the fact that he wasn't the person I thought he was. I wasn't ready to see the cracks forming, so I ignored them, hoping they'd go away. But they never did. I started keeping things to myself. At first, it was just small things I didn't think were worth bringing up. But over time, I started holding back more and more. I stopped telling him when I was upset, stopped sharing my fears, my doubts, my insecurities. It felt like every time I tried to open up, he wasn't really listening, so I just stopped trying. I buried my feelings, trying to keep the peace. I told myself I could handle it, that it was just part of life. But deep down, I knew the silence was creating something between us that I couldn't ignore anymore. We were growing apart, and I didn't know how to fix it. Every unspoken word made the gap wider, and I felt myself drifting further away, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything. I was afraid of what might happen if I did. Looking back, I realize now that I had stopped sharing myself with him a long time ago. The small cracks that appeared didn't feel like cracks at the time. They felt like temporary setbacks, things that would blow over. But when I think about it now, the distance between us had already started to grow before that funeral. I stopped telling him what I needed, stopped asking for his support, because it felt like he didn't care enough to give it. I could see the change in him too. He wasn't as present, wasn't as engaged in conversations. It was like we were in two different worlds, living under the same roof. I stopped making an effort to reach out, to close that gap, because it seemed like he wasn't meeting me halfway. And maybe that's what hurt the most. I could have tried harder, could have forced myself to say something sooner. But instead, I just let it fester. Slowly, over time, the connection we had started to disappear, like sand slipping through my fingers. I don't know when it stopped, feeling like we were a team, but standing at that funeral, feeling completely alone, I realized it had happened a long time ago. I didn't know when exactly I started doubting him, but by that day, it was impossible to ignore. Every little thing he did or said made me wonder if I ever truly knew him at all. Was he always like this? The moments that once felt like small annoyances started to look like signs of something much deeper. His lack of empathy, his inability to be there for me, the way he would turn everything back on me when I tried to talk about my feelings, it all started to feel like he had been slowly slipping away from me for months, maybe even longer. I wanted to believe I was just overreacting, that this was just a tough time in our relationship. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that something had been wrong for a long time. I didn't want to face it, but I couldn't help it. Every time I looked at him, I saw more and more of the person I didn't recognize. Was this who he always was? Or had I just been blind to it because I was so desperate to hold on to the love I thought we had? The more I thought about it, the more the doubt ate at me. I wasn't sure I could trust him anymore. I wasn't even sure if I could trust myself for letting things go this far. I started noticing all the little ways trust was breaking down. It wasn't just his words anymore, but his actions were the lack of them. The emotional neglect, the way he'd retreat when things got tough, it started to feel like I was no longer a priority to him. I began to question every interaction, every gesture. Was this just stress? Or was it something deeper? I used to believe that no matter what, we could get through anything together, that we were partners in everything. But now, all I felt was this growing sense of distance. I wasn't sure when the walls started going up between us, but they were there, and they were thickening by the day. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I didn't know who he was becoming, but I knew I didn't recognize him. I didn't want to believe it, but the lies started creeping in. At first, they were small, insignificant things I could brush off. But as time went on, the lies became more frequent, more deliberate. He would tell me things that didn't make sense, things that didn't add up. And when I asked him about them, he'd get defensive, acting like I was the one who was being unreasonable. I didn't want to believe he could lie to me, but it started to feel like the truth was slipping through his fingers and he wasn't trying to hold onto it anymore. I felt like I was drowning in confusion. The person I thought I knew, the person I had trusted, was slowly slipping away, and every lie just made that distance feel wider. I didn't know how much longer I could keep pretending everything was okay. How could I trust him after everything that had started to unravel? It wasn't just the lies. There were moments when he would twist things, make me feel like I was the one overreacting. He had this way of making me question myself, making me feel like I was imagining things, like my feelings didn't matter. It was like he was trying to control the narrative, making it seem like I was the one causing all the problems. I'd bring up something I was upset about, and he'd turn it around on me, making it seem like I was being irrational, too emotional, or too sensitive. It started to feel like I couldn't trust my own instincts anymore. Was I really overreacting? Or was he manipulating me into thinking I was? It made me question everything about myself, about us. And that's when I knew I wasn't just dealing with a lack of support anymore. I was dealing with emotional manipulation. The gaslighting made everything feel unreal, and it left me second-guessing every thought, every feeling I had. It was exhausting, trying to hold on to my sense of self while he twisted things around. But the more I thought about it, the more it became clear I wasn't just losing trust in him. I was losing trust in myself. As the emotional manipulation took its toll, the distance between us only grew. I started withdrawing, not because I wanted to, but because it felt like there was no point in trying anymore. He didn't care. He wasn't even trying to understand me anymore. Every time I opened up, he shut me down. And every time I needed support, I was met with indifference. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't keep reaching out for someone who wasn't even trying to meet me halfway. And the worst part, he didn't even seem to notice. It felt like we were living in two separate worlds, sharing a home but not a life. I didn't know what to do. I had stopped trying to make things work, because it felt like I was the only one left holding onto what we had. It wasn't just a lack of love. It was a complete disregard for everything I was going through. And that's when I realized we were done. There was no fixing this. After everything, I finally couldn't hold it in anymore. I had to confront him. I had to ask him, why? Why did you tell me to smile at my mom's funeral? I needed to hear his explanation. I was trembling when I spoke, the weight of everything I'd been holding and crashing down on me. This wasn't just about a moment. This was about everything that had been building up, everything he had never said, everything I had been pretending wasn't there. When I asked him, I could see the confusion on his face, but it wasn't "I'm sorry" look. It was more like he didn't understand what the big deal was. And that was when I realized it wasn't just that he didn't care. He didn't even see it. And that hurt more than anything. The truth came out that night, and it was worse than I ever imagined. He admitted, in a roundabout way, that he had been emotionally distant for months, maybe even longer. He said things weren't going well for him, but that he didn't think I'd notice. He was busy with his own issues, but he never took the time to ask about mine. He hadn't been there for me, not when I needed him the most, not even when my mother passed away. His emotional neglect was far deeper than I ever realized. The betrayal hit me like a freight train, and I felt like my world was crashing down. I thought we were a team, but he had been living in his own world, and I was nothing more than an afterthought. Trust shattered. I couldn't process the weight of what he had just said. Everything I thought was solid, our relationship, our future, felt like it had been built on lies. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think straight. How had I not seen this? How had I ignored it for so long? I wanted to believe he could change, that we could work through this, but deep down, I knew things would never be the same. I couldn't unsee what I'd just learned. The foundation we built our life on had crumbled, and there was nothing I could do to fix it. I felt like I was drowning in this realization, and I wasn't sure if I was strong enough to swim through it. Anger, sorrow, guilt, they all collided inside me in an overwhelming storm. I was furious with him, but I was also furious with myself. How could I have let it go this far? How could I have been so blind to the cracks? My heart ached, not just because of his betrayal, but because of how much I had invested in something that wasn't real. My trust, my love, it all felt like it had been wasted. I wanted to scream, to run away, to do anything to escape the chaos in my head. But I couldn't. I was stuck in this emotional whirlwind, and I didn't know how to find my way out. I felt like I was losing myself, losing the person I used to be, the one who believed in love and in second chances. But how could I trust again after this? How could I rebuild when everything had been torn apart? In the days that followed, everything felt like it was in free fall. The reality of the betrayal sank in deeper than I ever thought possible. It wasn't just the fact that he had been emotionally absent, it was the complete disregard for me and everything I had been going through. The way he showed up for me only when it was convenient for him. The way he dismissed my pain. The way he'd made everything about him, it was all too much to bear. I started to question what I was doing. Was I supposed to stay in this relationship and try to fix what was broken? Or was it time to walk away and finally accept that some things can be repaired? I couldn't ignore the emotional toll it had taken on me. Every time I looked at him, I saw the person I thought I could trust, the person I thought was my partner. And yet, all I felt was emptiness. I had given so much of myself to this marriage, but I was left questioning if I had ever been enough. The consequences of his betrayal weren't just about our relationship, they were about me losing pieces of myself in the process. I was a mess. It felt like everything was crashing down, all at once. I couldn't make sense of what had happened or what to do next. I was torn between wanting to salvage something, to believe that we could work through it, and knowing deep down that I couldn't trust him anymore. I felt heartbroken, not just because of what he did, but because of the emotional manipulation I hadn't even realized was happening. How had I let myself get to this point? I felt guilty for not standing up for myself earlier, for not seeing the signs, for letting myself be manipulated into thinking everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. The hardest part was accepting that the love I thought we had wasn't what I thought it was. The emotional fallout hit me like a tidal wave, and I wasn't sure how to swim through it. My world felt like it had shattered, and every part of me felt broken. I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know what I wanted, what I deserved, or how to move forward. I was lost in the hurt, and I wasn't sure how to find my way out. I spent so many sleepless nights replaying everything in my mind, trying to make sense of what had happened. The pain was so heavy, so suffocating, that I felt like I couldn't breathe. I kept wondering what I did wrong, what I missed, what I could have done differently. But the truth was, I had done nothing wrong. I had given my all. It wasn't me. It was him. But it didn't make the pain any easier to bear. Slowly, I started to come to terms with the fact that I couldn't change the past. I couldn't undo what had been done. I didn't know what to do with all the anger, the guilt, and the sadness that were still swirling around inside of me. But I knew I had to find a way to deal with it. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I couldn't stay in a relationship that was causing me so much emotional turmoil. I couldn't keep sacrificing my happiness for someone who wasn't there when I needed them the most. I had to start healing, even if I didn't know where to begin. It wasn't just about confronting him anymore. It was about confronting myself. I had to face the consequences of my own choices, staying in a relationship that was hurting me, ignoring the signs, accepting the emotional neglect. I couldn't pretend everything was okay anymore. The damage had been done, and as much as I wanted to believe that we could fix it, deep down, I knew I had to face the fact that some things can't be fixed. My trust had been broken, and it wasn't just about him, it was about me. I had to ask myself if I could ever trust again, if I could ever love again in the same way. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that the real healing had to start within me. I needed to forgive myself for allowing this to happen. I needed to let go of the guilt, the shame, and the fear of what came next. It was hard, so hard, but I knew I couldn't move forward until I did. And the first step was accepting that everything had changed, and I needed to change too. Moving forward was the hardest part. I didn't know how to let go, didn't know how to start again. I didn't want to give up on everything we had built, but I also couldn't ignore the pain I was carrying. I felt torn in so many directions. Part of me wanted to fix things, to believe in him, to believe in us, but another part of me knew that I had to let go. I couldn't keep holding onto a relationship that no longer served me. Slowly, I started taking small steps to rebuild my life. I distanced myself emotionally, started focusing on myself, started taking care of me in ways I had neglected for so long. I surrounded myself with the people who loved me, who saw me for who I really was. And while the road was long, I started to feel like I was finding myself again. It wasn't easy. There were days when the pain would hit me all over again, when I wondered if I had made the right decision, when I felt lost and unsure. But every small step forward, every day I woke up and chose to take care of myself, felt like a victory. I wasn't sure where the road would lead, but I knew that I couldn't keep living in the past. It took time, more time than I ever thought it would, but eventually, I began to accept that I couldn't change the past. I couldn't change what happened between us. Couldn't undo the hurt. And that was okay. I had to let go of the version of myself who thought everything was perfect, who believed in something that wasn't real. I had to let go of the dreams we had shared and the future I thought we were building together. And in that letting go, I found peace. Not right away, but little by little. It wasn't easy. It wasn't pretty. But I learned that sometimes the hardest part of moving forward is accepting that things will never be the same again. I had to let go of the past in order to heal, in order to create a future that was mine. And even though it hurt, I knew that it was the only way I could start over. I had to make space for a new version of myself, a version that didn't rely on someone else's approval or love to feel whole. And with each passing day, I found strength I didn't know I had. Looking back now, I see how much I've learned about myself through all of this. I've learned that I was stronger than I ever gave myself credit for. I've learned that I can survive heartbreak, that I can pick myself up even when everything feels shattered. I've learned that it's okay to not have everything figured out, to not have all the answers. But more than anything, I've learned that I can't lose myself for the sake of someone else. I spent so much time trying to make things work, trying to fix something that wasn't meant to be fixed. I ignored my own feelings, my own needs in favor of making sure he was okay. And in doing that, I lost pieces of myself along the way. But now, I see that it's okay to put myself first. It's okay to take care of my own heart, even if it means letting go of someone I thought I couldn't live without. I've learned that I'm worthy of love, not just from others, but from myself. And that's something I never truly understood before. This experience has changed me in ways I didn't expect. I've learned to stand up for myself, to advocate for my own happiness. I've learned to trust myself, to listen to my instincts, and to honor my feelings instead of pushing them aside. I've realized that I don't need someone else to define me or to make me feel whole. I am enough, on my own. It's been a long and painful journey, but it's also been a journey of growth. I've learned the importance of boundaries, of self-respect, and of walking away when something isn't right for me. I've learned that sometimes the hardest thing to do is the thing that saves you in the end. Letting go of what doesn't serve you is the first step toward building a better life. And while it still hurts, I know that the pain will eventually fade, and what will remain is a version of me who is stronger, wiser, and more self-aware. If I could share anything from all of this, it would be this. Love and trust are fragile. They're not something you can take for granted. The way you treat someone matters, and if you neglect them, if you take them for granted, you risk losing everything. But more importantly, I've learned that self-respect is the foundation of everything. You can't give everything to someone else and expect to get it back if you're not giving it to yourself first. I ignored my own needs for so long, and I allowed myself to believe that I didn't deserve more. But I do, and you do too. If you're in a situation that's draining you, hurting you, and making you feel less than, it's okay to walk away. It's okay to put yourself first. That's something I never fully understood before. But now I do. This journey hasn't been easy, but it's been necessary. Sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones that leave the deepest scars, but they're also the ones that make us who we are. I've learned that healing isn't linear. Some days, it feels like you're moving forward, and other days, it feels like you're stuck in the same place. But eventually, you get to a point where the pain is more bearable, and you can look back and see how far you've come. Don't let anyone dim your light. Don't let anyone make you feel like you're not enough. You are. And if you're in a relationship where your feelings are being ignored, where your needs aren't being met, it's okay to walk away. You deserve to be loved, valued, and respected. You deserve peace. And that's something I want you to remember. No matter where you are in your own journey, if you've gone through something similar, I want to hear your story. Drop a comment below and share how you've navigated through your pain. If you found this story helpful, please consider subscribing for more raw and real stories like this. Let's build a community where we support and uplift each other.